I took my son Samuel to gymnastics, and it's often been quite a nightmare. And so I'd like to share a little bit about that. And hopefully you can take some of this as from a parent perspective, and maybe there's something that you can gather from this as a parent. Hopefully it can help you. So I took Sam to gymnastics, and in the parking lot, he starts having a meltdown that he doesn't want to go. And so you know, as a shame, filled with shame, I'm like, oh crap, like I can't take him in because it's just going to be a nightmare and everybody's going to be watching us, and he just really didn't feel like going. And so then I took him back to the car. He's like, I want to go back to the car. So I take him back to the car. He's still screaming, I don't want to go. And I call my wife and I talk to Janice and I say, and he doesn't want to go. And she says to me, she goes, well, you got to try. You got to bring him in there. And I'm like, well, he's not going to go. He doesn't want to. And she's like, well, you got to try. She goes, you got to at least try. And so I decided to accept my wife's influence with that, which is good. It's something we should be doing. And so I say to my son, I say, Sam, you are worried and you are, feeling kind of uncomfortable going. And so I validated his feelings and then I said, we are going in. And so at first he was crying and not wanting to go. I brought him in and I said, let's do this together. Brought him in and he ended up having an incredible time. And so there's a few things that we can gather from that. A few things we can gather from this experience that I had is that a lot of us guys have a hard time accepting influence from our wives. So that was number one, is that I felt like we did a good job by just working as a team and, accepting influence from my wife. And then I brought him in, acknowledged my son's feelings, and then we pushed through his feelings, teaching him that, you know what, we don't always have to give in to our feelings. We can acknowledge them, but then we can move through it. And then he ended up having a great time. So, the opposite of that is if we would have given in to his emotions, then what would we have been teaching him? What's the message that he would learn about emotions? He'd he'd maybe learn that, if we kept on doing this over time, he maybe learned that, well, his emotions will run the show for the rest of his life, right? And so that's something I don't want for my kid, is that as soon as he starts feeling something, then he has to give in to that feeling or emotion. I think there's a lot of maybe even therapy that focuses a lot on the emotional side of things um, and feelings, and though it's not wrong to focus on feelings, it's when we choose to dwell in those feelings and make decisions that are only based on our feelings. And so I think we're actually doing kids a little disservice by teaching them to just, feel so much and, so much feeling. Feelings can actually impact us negatively if we're constantly focused on feelings, right? And so when we look at, the amount of, therapy that's going on in our culture and, so much emphasis on mental health, we're actually seeing the opposite happen. We're seeing people be impacted negatively. And so I don't want to throw down the whole profession, but in some ways, I think we have to look critically on how we're focusing so much on emotion and being critical about that, right? That we have to learn to identify emotion, but we also have to learn to move through it, to be resilient within it. Otherwise, we are going to be a bunch of uh, we're not going to be very strong in our ability to withstand adversity in this culture. So that's what I got to say about that.